A little bit scary. So my partner and I, we have 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl. And I got to tell you, we love them. They bring so much joy into our lives, the way they grow so fast, they learn, they change. And one of the interesting things is, even though they come from the same parents, they're quite different. They were born with distinct personalities. And I know you're not supposed to have favourites, but I do. The boy, he's my favourite. He's really outgoing and adventurous, and he's into everything, really social. People love him, you know. However, he's reached that age where his hormones are kicking in and he's starting to throw his weight around. He's getting a bit bolshy, he's pushing parameters, and he can't think of anything except getting laid. He's obsessed with it. And to be honest, he's starting to stink. So this weekend is the time I've decided I've got to take some action. So I'm going to take his balls off. Yep, castration before he starts pissing on his own face. I can see you looking a little concerned. Don't worry, our kids are actually kids. They're goats. We have 2 baby goats. I wouldn't have actual human children. Can't think of anything worse. Look, if you have kids at home, don't take offence, but it's not for me. I've never wanted kids. And there are a bunch of reasons. I'll give you a couple at least. The planet at the moment has got about 8.5 billion, heading for 9 billion, and they reckon it can sustainably hold probably 1 billion, so it's not like we need any more, okay? And another reason is, look, some people feel like they need to pass on their sort of biological heritage. For me, this genetic petri dish only needs to happen once. So my life is good, I like it, but it takes me all the energy and time I have to look after the one child that I had in my life, and that's me. So you could say, fair enough, you don't want kids, no worries, don't have them. It's not that simple. Here's a frightening statistic for you. In Australia, 40% of pregnancies are unplanned. Now that's not to say when the kid arrives you don't want it, but think about it, that's 200,000 mistakes every year. It's no wonder that people say she fell pregnant. You know, it's like you're walking down the street, oh shit, I'm up the duff, how did that happen? And it did happen to a bunch of my friends, particularly in their 20s and 30s. They had a kid and then high as a kite on fatherhood, absolutely off their chops on oxytocin. They'd hand me this little kid as if it was some sort of, I'm going to get you used to having children, it'll be okay. And for me, it was the absolute opposite. It was kind of some kind of aversion therapy. They hand me the kid, I'd pick it up, the kid would look at my face and start screaming, and then be like some kind of Krakatoa of like diarrhoea, snot and vomit, usually all at the same time. And so I'd be like, yeah, nah, it's not really for me. So, kids, I don't really want them. And at a certain point in time, you think, well, if I'm really sure I don't want them, maybe it's time for that surgical intervention. Maybe it's time for the permanent pothole in the highway of human semen. Maybe it's time for me to get a vasectomy. Now, a vasectomy apparently is one of the most, this is according to Andrew, by the way, I didn't do this research, you'll have to fact check it with her, but getting a vasectomy is one of the most cost-effective and reliable forms of not getting anyone pregnant. So I'm starting to think on it, do a little research, but, it's quite a visceral sensation. The idea of surgical steel cutting into your genitalia, it gives your testicles a tingle, I tell you. And it made me not feel good. So I started thinking deeply about it. And I figured that a lot of the anxiety was to do with the fear of a lack of masculinity or loss of masculinity. Now, I am, as you can see, Fremantle, long-haired, ukulele playing, save the whales, mung bean eating hippie. I've never driven a Monaro in my life. Nonetheless, I felt this intense anxiety about what am I going to lose along with the flow of semen. So I spoke to some of the bros, and they unanimously supported me in not getting it done. And I was like, why? And their answers were kind of murky and misty. They were kind of superstitious. One guy told me about his hyperactive, high-powered, very fast red cloud kelpie that had his testicles taken out and it turned into like a little fat couch potato, and he used to sit on the couch watching TV and dribbling on the pillows. Another guy who's a bit of a hippie, spiritualistic kind of dude, he said, what's going to happen is when you tie a knot in your kundalini, the energy moving to your higher chakras will become blocked and give you permanent headache. Eventually, my sense of civic duty and my duty to my responsibility to my partner to make the contraceptive decisions more equitable meant that I decided I'm going to do it. So I got on the phone. Yay! So I got on the phone, booked the appointment, postponed the appointment, cancelled the appointment. Got on the phone again, booked the appointment, postponed the appointment, cancelled the appointment, until eventually the day arrived. I was escorted to the hospital by my lovely partner. Now, she knew that it was a delicate and sensitive operation, so she came to the long haul. She bought a work laptop, a packet of chips, thermos of coffee. She settled into the waiting room and I shuffled off into the surgery. And the first thing they did, just to make me really comfortable, was take my clothes off and put one of those things on with a couple of lace-ups at the back, and my ass was hanging out, and I felt more uncomfortable than ever. And I'm not sure, look, then the doctor came in, and I'm not sure if this is my memory playing tricks, but my memory is that he looked somewhere between Mr. Magoo and Edward Scissorhands. He says, well, son, get up on the table. So, something I forgot to mention, the table is covered in vinyl and the hospital's air-conditioned. So as I plonked my ass down on the vinyl table, it was freezing and my testicles shot up behind my tonsils. So I'm lying there with my knees in the air. Magoo's down there somewhere. I can't see him because of the surgical robe, and he's kind of whistling to himself. I'm exposed, I'm shriveled, I'm scared. And then he starts talking about cricket. Fucking cricket. I'm about as interested in cricket as I am in the use of traditional tartan kilts in the making of picnic rugs. Not at all. And at this point I'm thinking, I wonder if he has a pair of forceps that are long enough to reach my testicles because they're just under my tonsils. Maybe he's going to have to use his selfie stick. I was about to leap up and leave the room when he popped his head up, flicked his gloves and said, see the nurse for post-operative care. And I was like, what? Yeah, that was it. Just like that. Done. All that angst, all that fear, all those stories about kelpies, none of it. So over the next weeks and months, I didn't grow breasts. My voice didn't reach a falsetto. And I didn't start weeping whenever they brought on a toilet paper ad full of, little fluffy chickens and puppies with big eyes, none of that. Nothing happened. The only thing, I guess, that was a slight change is my partner and I stopped feeling anxious that we might accidentally fall pregnant. So this weekend, when I go to the goat pen and I take a very small elastic band and lay it around the ever-increasing testicles of my poor little boy goat, I hope that he can forgive me. And I hope that he understands that it had to be that way. Now on for the musical part, Don. Up you come. Donald asked me to introduce him as an early experiment in getting the vasectomy. But you'll notice that his voice is still beautiful.
Yes, believe it or not, I actually had a vasectomy. You think, why, at his age, why? No, I was one of the early experiments many years ago.
But he still has a beautiful voice, as you'll hear. This song's called The Snip, and it's starts with Donald.
Dumba ba dumba ba dumba ba dumba da ba da dumba ba dumba ba dumba ba dumba da ba da dumba ba dumba ba dumba ba dumba da ba da dumba ba dumba ba dumba ba dumba da ba da dumba.
Well, the planet's getting crowded. Thought I'd make my contribution with some medical intervention. Be part of the solution. But what if something goes awry and I'm filled with regret? Oh, will I walk with a limp, become a gimp, develop a falsetto?
A falsetto.
I've got this inclination for the cessation of procreation while engaged in copulation. I don't want no sexual frustration. I want the snip. I want the snip. I want the snip, 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 snip. I want the Dumba ba 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 dumba. I went around to Jono's place as I was passing by. He'd help me with me pergola and he's into DIY. In fact, he's quite a guru, Bunnings, Obi-Wan Kenobi. He said, "Sit down, son, you just relax," as he reached for his Ryobi.
Ryobi.
I've got this inclination for the cessation of procreation while engaged in copulation. I don't want no sexual frustration. I want the snip. I want the snip. I want the snip, 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 snip. I want the Boomba ba dumba ba dumba ba dumba ba boomba ba dumba ba dumba ba dumba. My hippie mate lit incense while we listened to whales sounding. Sipping organic herbal chai, he said, "Man, that's astounding. Your inner child will be so pissed when you snip that hidden genie. Your chai will get all tangled up and you'll block your kundalini." I've got this inclination for the cessation of procreation while engaged in copulation. I don't want no sexual frustration. I want the snip. I want the snip. I want the snip, 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 snip. I want the Dumba ba 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 dumba. The doctor's hands were icy cold as we made our acquaintance. The walls were lined with pickle parts removed from other patients. 15 grand in cash, he said. How soon will we be starting? I thought, you must be dreaming. Jono, he'll do it for a carton. For a carton. I've got this inclination for the cessation of procreation while engaged in copulation. I don't want no sexual frustration. I want the snip. I want the snip. I want the snip, 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 snip. I want the. If you've heard this conversation about inflating population and it caused you consternation, here's a tip. If the thought of procreation doesn't fill you with elation and you'd rather do macrame or another renovation, there's a simple operation that could soon be your salvation. Without further hesitation, seek a medical destination and get the Thank you.